It's time for Downtown Hockeytown presented by Labatt Blue Light, and today's guest is NHL.com columnist Nick Cotsonika. Nick, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're really excited to talk to you. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is the NHL awards. The writers had to submit their ballots this week, and it's going to be an interesting one because obviously the players didn't get to play an entire season. But in your mind, who's the top contender for the Hart Trophy?
Well, I used to vote for a very long time, and I think my first ballot was 99-2000. And I remember getting the ballot, and it has the criteria for the ballot on it, and it says most valuable to his team. The Pearson Award, which became the Ted Lindsay Award, is most outstanding player. And to me, it's two different things. I have no problem if Leon Draisaitl wins it. He's got a huge lead in the scoring race. He's been outstanding for the Edmonton Oilers. But when I look at most valuable to his team, I think it's Nathan MacKinnon. And if I had a vote, it'd be for him. I think he has 14 more goals and 43 more points than anybody else for the Colorado Avalanche. The Avalanche are high in the NHL standings. They've been, riddled with injuries. And to me, no one's been more valuable to his team than Nate MacKinnon.
There's another interesting race too, and that's for the Calder Trophy, where I believe, and everybody thought that Cale Makar was going to win it, McKinnon's teammate, who really has, since he came out of U.S. college, has played very, very well. But then there's another college player, and Nick, I know I'm not objective about this, and I'm pretty sure maybe you might not be objective. Thank heaven you're not voting. Is Michigan's own Quinn Hughes, who's tearing it up with Vancouver. I would assume that's the debate. Trying to throw your allegiance to the University of Michigan aside, Quinn Hughes has to win this thing, right?
Throwing it aside, he's got to win. I've got no problem. Like, if Quinn Hughes wins or Cale Makar wins, I think there's a good argument for either one. I did sit, so you couldn't see my Michigan Wolverine stuff in the background. But, look, Kubalik scored 30-plus goals for Chicago. That's impressive. Adam Fox has been really good for the New York Rangers. I think, there are other candidates, that are deserving of in the conversation, but it's a two-horse race. What hurts Makar is he got hurt. He missed, I think, 7 games, which depressed his numbers a little. But if you look at his points per game, he has more than Hughes. Hughes, you can make an argument for him as well. So I think either one of them would be a deserving choice. But obviously the kid who lives in Canton and played for Michigan, I might have a little bias toward.
I do.
Oh, I know you do. This might be the first time that I've been stuck with 2 Michigan guys. Usually I have another Sparty with me, but I've got 2 Michigan guys right now.
You're outnumbered. Sorry.
I know.
And it doesn't get any better than that, Daniella, and you know. I mean,
exactly what I was thinking.
Lucky you.
Exactly what I was thinking. Let's switch our focus a little here, guys, and talk about the upcoming draft lottery that it will be tomorrow night. And the Red Wings have an 18.5% chance of getting the number 1 pick. One thing I want to talk to you about, Nick, is Steve Yzerman mentioned in his press conference that he doesn't think there's an area on this team that doesn't need improvement. And if they do end up with that number 1 pick, we're assuming they're going to go Alexi Lafreniere. But if they do fall, what do you think they'll address first?
I think they have to address drafting the best player available. I think that it doesn't matter. To put it delicately, I agree with Steve. I don't think there's a spot on this team that doesn't need addressing. They've got to come out of this draft with a difference maker. Obviously, you hope they win the lottery and get the number 1 pick for their sake. But I remember speaking to somebody in the organization at one point, and I said, look, you guys got to win this lottery. You have to make something of this season in a positive way. He said, Nick, doesn't matter what happens in the lottery. We got to find a player. And he's right. We just talked about Cale Makar. All right. He was drafted 4th overall, right? Which is what, the worst case scenario for the Detroit Red Wings. So whether you're 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, you got to find a star, right? A difference maker. And I really think that's what it comes down to. And losing the lottery isn't the worst thing. You just have to make the best of wherever you pick.
Well, it's interesting you would bring that up because, I'm very pessimistic. The NHL draft lottery, which we could do a whole segment on, which I think is one of the most bizarre lottery systems known to professional sports. But with that said, I know the Red Wings are going to draft fourth. They're going to go down to four. They have,
Yeah.
Ottawa's going to get picks 1 and 2, and then who knows? Maybe the Montreal Canadiens, if they lose in the first round in 24, if we get that far, we'll pick third, and then the Red Wings. They have a real interesting thing because if the high end forwards go Lafreniere, Byfield, and then Stutzla from Germany at number 4. And this is, I'm asking you to be a soothsayer here, Nick. Do they go for Jamie Drysdale? By all accounts, is a number 1 defenseman in the NHL, not just a top pair, a number 1, which maybe the Red Wings don't have right now in their system, even though they have a lot of them. Or does Stevie go off the board, and does he go to Askarov, the Russian goalie, which I'm pretty sure he has an affinity for Russian goalies. But how do you see that playing out at number 4 for Detroit?
No clue. None. And I don't mean to be, to avoid the question, but who saw him picking Cider last year? Nobody, right? So we know Steve is willing to think for himself and go off the board and do what he thinks is right. I can't predict the future. I'm not a draft guru, but what I can give perspective on is this. Where was Steve Yzerman drafted? Number 4, right? 1983?
Right.
So if you go back to 1983, Red Wings are terrible. Okay, everybody wants Pat LaFontaine. Red Wings don't get him. They get this guy, Steve Yzerman. Who's this guy, right? I don't think anybody thought that Steve Yzerman was going to come in and turn into the captain and the eventual GM, right? So you don't really know, right? We don't really know who these players are going to turn into. They have to find a difference maker. The other half of that is, okay, so they drafted Steve Yzerman in 1983. We all know how that turned out. But when did they win the Cup? 1997, right? So they still had to surround him with Sergei Fedorov and Nicholas Lidstrom and Brendan Shanahan and the rest, right? So I think this draft is really important. I think they need to hit on the pick. I think they need to get a difference maker. I still think it's only one piece in the puzzle.
Again, we're talking about all of this, and like you said, it's a really fluid situation with all of it. But I do want to touch on free agency just a little bit. The Red Wings are definitely going to have to make a splash there too, and I'm sure it depends on who they draft in the upcoming draft. But what do you think some possible scenarios are for the Red Wings in free agency?
Well, if I'm the Red Wings, it may be to my advantage that the cap goes down or stays static because that would create problems for other teams. And that will create opportunities for the Red Wings, either with free agents who are out there or teams that need to make trades in order to adjust their cap. If I'm Yzerman, I'm sniffing around that. So I think a lower cap for Detroit is a good thing. And it's very possible we'll have that. We don't know what's going to happen here because obviously revenues are going to take a hit. The salary cap's tied to revenues. The NHL and the NHLPA may negotiate some sort of artificial cap. So we don't know where the cap number is going to end up. But if I'm a Detroit fan, I'm kind of hoping that it's low and that squeezes some other teams and creates opportunities for Detroit. What Steve's philosophy will be on free agency and what's available will be interesting. Again, I think it's short term. You're not going to turn this around by signing a bunch of flashy free agents, but I think you can use it in a wise manner to make the team better in the short term and more entertaining, but also B, to kind of bridge the gap while your younger players develop.
This team's not going to hit the ice for a long, long time. We don't know what's going to happen with the AHL. I know they've announced a play committee, and Steve is part of it along with Ken Holland. But I'm kind of curious, Nick. What do you think is going to happen? When do you think the Red Wings are going to hit the ice? And is the league going to have to make accommodations for these 7 teams if they do have this playoff system? Because you can't keep the Red Wings off the ice for 10 solid months. I mean, they have to at least allow them to somehow congregate as a team.
Well, for the Detroit Red Wings, that's my number one concern right now because it's all about drafting and developing. So the players that you have now, you got to develop them, right? We were on the conference call with Steve, and that was my question to him. What do you do right now? Do you your European players, do you keep them in Europe or send them back to Europe? Like if Germany's open and North America is not. Do you send Sider home to play? I think it's a little early to get answers to these questions, but they're good ones. I think at the moment, the NHL and the NHLPA are so focused on resuming this season and the CBA issues that that's the number one priority. If that gets launched, right, and everything goes right, and play resumes, I think they can move on to the next things. But I'm with you. Like, do you do mini camps? Do you have those 7 teams do a little Traverse City style tournament? They've got to get on the ice. They've got to find ways to keep these guys developing in this downtime. Now, that said, it's going to be on the individual players to take control of their development in some sense too. Like Steve's money quote to me that day was, "We're going to see who wants to be a hockey player. Like, we're going to find out. Like, who if you want to take the foot off the gas, you got no better excuse than right now. So who wants to be a player? Who wants to develop?" I think you saw a little of that Steve Yzerman competitive fire come out in that answer.
Nick, I'm going to ask you the most important question that we have asked you so far in this interview. And we've been talking about this a little bit leading up to tomorrow's NHL draft lottery. But do you have any good luck superstitions that we can all do tonight to make sure that the Red Wings have the most luck that they can possibly have heading into tomorrow night?
Everybody go get an octopus, boil it, and throw it on the driveway. I don't know.
Hey, that's not a bad one. I like that.
Why not? I haven't had some good octopus throwing in a while. Let's do that.
Well, Nick, we really appreciate your insight. It's been great to have you. We'll definitely have to have you back really soon. A big thank you to our friends at Labatt Blue Light for presenting Downtown Hockeytown. Labatt Blue Light, refreshing Canadian Pilsner. Visit your local retailer when safe to pick up some Labatt Blue Light.